All right, well, let's kick things off. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. My name's Rick Boyce. I'm on the sales team here at Habitat ADU, and I wanted to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. We appreciate your spending an hour of your Wednesday afternoon with us to talk about ADUs. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce my associate, Jeremy Perriman, who's one of the leaders on our construction team. And he's going to be joining me today to present this webinar to all of you. Just as a quick intro to tell you a little bit about who we are and what the heck we're doing here in the Zoom room today, and to make sure that you're in the right Zoom room to begin with. We are a company headquartered out of San Francisco. Our sole focus is to build ADUs for homeowners and property owners throughout all of California. And we started the company in 2019 really for three core reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I think as many of us know, in the Bay Area and certainly throughout California, the price of stick building construction is expensive and gets increasingly so. We see prefab as a great solution to that, and we'll talk more about that today, of course. But just beyond the cost, building a second home, I mean, building anything, whether it's an ADU, a remodel, a complete house, it's a complicated and difficult process. And we wanted to build a system that would remove that headache and make everything about that process easier for homeowners. And finally, and this is really a huge piece of the reason that we exist, in 2019, 5 bills made their way to Governor Newsom's desk. He signed all 5 into law, and they went into effect January 1st of 2020. And those 5 laws combined really changed quite dramatically everything about ADUs in the state of California. It's easier, it's more affordable, it's quicker. We'll get into all the things that have changed, but it's really hugely impactful for all of us. And if you're a property owner in California, really, there's never been a better time to build an ADU, that's for sure. In terms of today's webinar, we're going to start by talking a little bit about just the backdrop, and we'll get into the what is an ADU. We'll talk about the rules and regulations. We'll get into some Bay Area and even more broadly California specific rules. And we'll talk a bit about who's building an ADU and why. We have some use cases that we'd like to share with you, of course. Part 2, we'll get into Habitat in a bit more detail. We'd like to share some floor plans and pricing. We'll talk about our process. We'll talk about how to get started with us. Today, by the way, joining this webinar is a great way to do just that and to start the process. And then importantly, we're going to save a bunch of time for your questions. So Jeremy and I are committed to at least 20 minutes of Q&A and more if we can do that at the end of today's presentation. There is a Q&A panel. You'll see it in the Zoom meeting dashboard. So feel free to launch that. You can start asking questions now. We do have members of our team that are also answering them live and in real time through the chat. So if they answer it during the during the webinar, great. If not, Jeremy and I will take it at the end of the conversation today. So with that, let's get started. We're really excited you're here and can't wait to share this presentation with you. So for openers, just in terms of intros and a bit more about us, I'll start, then I'll turn it to Jeremy. But I'm on the sales team here at Habitat. As I mentioned, I've been here for almost a year, and it's been an amazing experience for so many reasons, and we'll talk about that a bit today. My background is I've been a multifamily real estate investor for about 20 years throughout the Western US. And I'm also an experienced ADU owner. I've owned homes that actually had ADUs, and I'll share a bit about my own personal experience being an ADU owner and landlord as we get into today's presentation a bit more. Hey, Jeremy, with that, I'll hand it over to you to talk a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Rick. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeremy Perriman. I am on the operations team at Habitat. I am the site operations manager in the South Bay Peninsula. I work with Rick almost specifically in our geo It's a very big geo. It's a very challenging geo, but we've sold dozens of projects together, and we have a really great relationship. I have 20 years experience in every area of real estate, construction, investment, etc. I joined Habitat because I was really impressed by our company's mission, what we're trying to do, create affordable housing solutions, solve the housing crisis in California, and really help families. And it's been life-changing for me. We've assembled an amazing team of professionals who are really good at what they do. And we only know one thing. We figure out solutions. It's a fantastic company. I've been here since July, beginning of July. And since that time, the company has almost tripled in size. And our last quarter was absolutely amazing. So we have an amazing trajectory. We're helping a lot of families, and company's mission is amazing.
Definitely, definitely. Ditto to all of that for sure. Let's start off just talking about definitions. We want to level set and make sure that that we're all on the same page with regard to, first off, what the heck is an accessory dwelling unit? And I mean, to me, when we talk about ADUs, it's very different than some of the secondary units of the past. So if you think about converted garages or kind of the granny flat concept of old, what we're talking about is something that's really quite different from that. These are significant and substantial structures built entirely with permits up to the most modern building codes, et cetera. So very different than the historical granny flat of years gone by. But from a state of California perspective, let's just run through some quick definitions. What the state says is that a homeowner may have a detached ADU in their yard. That can be up to 1,200 square feet. Now, that's not allowable to go that big in all jurisdictions, and we'll get more into that. But from the state of California perspective, they would like to see that happen. And they know that allowing people to build ADUs of that size and scale is the best way to address the housing crisis here in our state. Beyond detached ADUs, homeowners can also build attached, so you can literally attach a second unit to your main home. And again, that can be up to 1,200 square feet. California also introduced this idea that they call a junior or a JADU, and a JADU can be up to 500 square feet. And typically it's a conversion of some existing space within your home. So think about a converted garage, maybe a converted basement, maybe a converted extra bedroom. As long as it doesn't exceed 500 square feet, that's allowable. Conversion ADUs as well are allowed on multifamily properties. And we'll talk more about both of those in just a second, JADUs as well as conversions with regard to multifamilies. The accessory dwelling unit does need to be accessory to a primary residence or a multifamily dwelling. We've had a number of customers come to us interested in having us build ADUs on vacant parcels. And typically, we can't say this would be universal, but typically the jurisdictions have told us that that ADU really needs to be accessory to an existing structure and cannot be the primary structure on a parcel. Most often, these ADUs are connected to the main utilities from the primary residence or dwelling. And optionally, but frequently, you're able to have a separate address, separate utility connections, and even a separate meter for the ADU. In terms of the new rules and regs, let me just kind of run through at a high level, kind of the big ones that are important for all of us to just be familiar with. First of all, and most importantly, the regulations that went into effect January 1st, 2020 are statewide and consistent. So no longer do we have jurisdiction by jurisdiction guidelines in California for ADUs, but the state has really given us a clear and universal roadmap for all of us in the state. We talked a moment ago about JADUs as well as detached or attached ADUs. And what's amazing is that a single parcel, so a single family parcel, can have both one detached ADU and one junior ADU that's converted from some existing space within that house or that garage. So think about that. A single home now can have really 3 different residences, on the same parcel thanks to this new law, which is, it's just amazing when you think about the impact that could have on California's housing shortage. The approval process for building permits has been massively accelerated. The state has mandated 60 days for feedback from the jurisdictions with regard to permit submissions, which is about twice as fast as what happens typically. The permit fees have been reduced, thank goodness. It's cheaper to build ADUs now than it has been in the past. And importantly, what the state has said is that if the ADU is within 1/2 mile of a transit stop, there are no parking requirements. So most homes in California, at least in the urban areas, are within a 1/2 mile of a bus stop, a train stop, et cetera. And if you are, you do not need to create parking specifically for the ADU. And that's a huge win for homeowners. Another huge win is owner occupancy requirements. They don't exist right now. So if you add a detached ADU or an attached ADU, those can be rented. And the single family home that's the primary residence on the property can also be rented. Neither one of those needs to be occupied by an owner. The one caveat is if you add a junior ADU, that does trigger owner occupancy. So if there's a junior ADU, one of the three, the ADU, whether it's attached or detached, the JADU or the single family home, one or the other does need to be owner occupied. And the last thing with regard to the new laws that's really opened things up for homeowners is the state has mandated that an ADU must meet setback requirements, but they're very much relaxed from what most of us are used to. Side and rear setbacks for side yards and backyards, just 4 feet from the state's perspective when it comes to ADUs. And oftentimes, you can see backyard setbacks that might be 10 or even 20 feet, side yards, 5 or 10 is not uncommon. So being able to go to 4 really means that more backyards by far are now able to accommodate an ADU given these relaxed setback requirements.
Rick, the only thing I would say here
Please.
is going back to the slide, we talk about the discretionary and the ministerial review, and you and I talk about this all the time. Yeah. Up to 800 square feet, a lot of the jurisdictions will pretty much just ministerially approve an application. And so as long as you abide by 4-foot setbacks and a 16-foot height requirement, it's going to go through planning and go straight to the building department. That is an amazing feature. Once you get above that 800 number, some other guidelines kick in on a case-by-case jurisdiction basis, but that 800 trigger is very important. And that's, you know, we sell a lot of 750 units and 800 units accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And I did want you to also, as we get into, we'll talk a little bit about multifamily, and then we'll get into some of the local jurisdiction by jurisdiction guidelines too, Jeremy. So I want to hear from you on that as well. Just quickly on multifamily, because it's a little different than single family, and some of you may own duplexes, triplexes, or even bigger buildings. Existing multifamily dwellings do qualify for having ADUs. And the reason I put quotes around this existing multifamily dwellings is what we've seen is, and again, it will vary jurisdiction by jurisdiction we've experienced, but what we've seen is that many jurisdictions will allow a multifamily dwelling that's used as a multifamily dwelling, whether or not it's zoned for multifamily. So that's just important to keep in mind. If you have an existing duplex or triplex, maybe it's not zoned multifamily, but it's zoned single family, you can still qualify very likely for these multifamily guidelines because it's used as a multifamily dwelling. And the reason that matters is that if you've got enough extra land on your multifamily parcel, you can have 2 detached ADUs per parcel. So whether it's a duplex, a tri, a fourplex, or even hundreds of units, you can have 2 detached ADUs per multifamily parcel per California law. Plus, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we have one deal right now where it's not zoned multifamily, but it's got a multifamily existing 4 or 5 units on it, and we're doing 2 detached ADUs as well as 1 conversion ADU. Right. So this concept of being, and Rick will get this on the next point, but the ability to do that extra space in the land allows you to create additional multifamily, especially in some of the jurisdictions where they have a shortage of housing. And so this is a creative way to create housing out of existing land and existing buildings.
Right, absolutely. And this conversion ADU concept is in addition to the detached ADUs. And this is a little bit like the junior ADU idea for single family homes. In this case, the idea with conversions is that you can convert storage space, garages, other unoccupied space within your apartment building, let's say, for what they call a conversion ADU. And you can have one conversion for every 4 units that you have. So an 8-unit building could have 2 conversion ADUs, 16-unit could have 4, et cetera. So that's how that math works. But importantly, the intent of the California law is that that is above and beyond the 2 detached ADUs that you're allowed to have as well. So let's talk a little bit about how these rules and regulations are applied jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And Jeremy, I want to hand this slide to you because you're really in the field interfacing with these various cities and counties on a day-to-day basis. So we'd really love to hear your insights on what you're seeing out there.
Going back to that original comment about ministerial versus discretionary approval, pretty much up to 800 square feet, there are minimum local guidelines. And you're able to pass essentially through the planning department in a matter of days or a week or a day. Above 800, you have to look at the jurisdiction. You have to look on a case-by-case basis, the zoning. Rick and I were discussing a deal last night where this came up, and the answer was that the local jurisdiction has said up to 800 square feet, this applies, and above 800 square feet, this set of standards applies. So what we do internally is we look at all these scenarios and determine what is best for you and your situation. But we do understand that the jurisdictions will, they push back a little bit. They like to have their say so, but you just have to get creative, and that's what we're really good at. I have a background in permitting law, real estate development, and I work with Rick and our team and our project management team, and we fight for our clients and see how each project situation is applicable, and we get super creative in finding those solutions. When we go above 800 square feet, there's an item called floor area ratio or open lot coverage, which tends to, depending on jurisdiction, can get complicated. Some local jurisdictions have 5, 6, 7 standards that we have to apply, and it's a mathematical equation of whether or not we can do things. So I think somebody in the questions asked, does it matter if the ADU is bigger than the main home? The answer is up to 800 square feet, no. Once you get above 800 square feet, then you start getting into these FAR, open lot coverage, mathematical equations. And what we do is we determine, we pull a site plan, we look at square footage of the lot, we look at all the accessory structures, the main unit, the garage, we look at all these items on the lot, and then we say, okay, we can do this here, this here, this here. And we usually give 2 or 3 options to a client and say, this is probably your best case scenario, this is a backup, and we work through those solutions. Multifamily guidelines. Some of the jurisdictions, going back to that 25% conversion law, or it's pretty, we've seen jurisdiction by jurisdiction that it's pretty standard for multifamily to allow 2 detached ADUs and 1 conversion ADU, no matter what. Other than that, they can get a little bit more restrictive depending on existing zoning, and again, open lot coverage, some different standards. Related to design standards, we had this question come up in SoCal the other day. HOAs or jurisdiction, can they push back on design standards of what my ADU looks like locally? The answer is up to 800 square feet. They can't really say too much. Beyond 800 square feet, they have a little bit more discretion. But for the most part, the jurisdictions have been very positive. They know that there is a housing crisis in the state, and they know the state is pushing very hard to create affordable housing solutions. And we all know that it's gotten so expensive, and families are having to move from the Bay Area and moving inland or moving to a different state because they can't afford to live here anymore. We have client after client who their children can't afford $1 million house, but they can afford a $200,000 to $300,000 house. So what they're doing is they're putting an ADU in their backyard for their children or their parents, and we're helping them solve that solution. So, you know, it's the first iteration. The Assembly Bill laws are reasonably new, less than a year old, but we are finding that as we work through this, the jurisdictions have been more cooperative. So this is a fantastic opportunity for people to, you know, create housing in their backyards.
Yeah. And it's a great point you made too, Jeremy, about the the local jurisdictions, whether it's, you know, city, county, whatever. By and large, they are super favorable. They want housing in their communities. They know they're short, and they know they're particularly short of affordable housing. And so what we really see more than anything is a lot of teamwork and esprit de corps around doing this together with the planning agency. So that's been really a gratifying part of this whole experience for sure. Um, so let's transition now into a little bit about, you know, why people are looking into ADUs. And again, we want to share a few use cases as well of the type of customers that we're seeing most frequently. But why now? There's so many reasons. People obviously are thinking differently about their living space now more than ever. COVID, ironically, has been a total accelerator of everything home and hearth. ADUs have been a part of that too. We're all at home, or many of us are right now, more than we were in the past, and that changes things. How we use our homes. We're seeing a lot of demand for home offices, place to put kids, all those other things. Certainly, and particularly when it comes to parents, there's questions about costly care facilities. A lot of people would like to have their loved ones closer. That's a huge driver. Tech, of course, the tech we're using right now with the Zoom meeting, all of this is enabling remote work. Many companies are encouraging it and even talking about it as being a reality post-COVID. So clearly, the tech is a driver. The demand for housing is higher than ever. Again, this has been kind of an odd, maybe unexpected outgrowth of COVID too, but as we all know in the Bay Area, prices have just gone up this year, demand has gone up. The housing crisis is actually worse now than it was before the pandemic. Favorably, from a homeowner's perspective, interest rates have never been lower. And so if you're thinking of borrowing to fund your ADU project, it's never been a better time. And rates have never been lower. We all know that. And then, of course, we talked about the new ADU laws. 5 came into effect as of January 1 last year, and that has changed everything about ADUs in California. In terms of who's building and why, we've literally, as a company, talked to thousands of homeowners about ADUs and their plans for an ADU. And I did just want to highlight what we see as the most popular use cases. Maybe some of these stories will resonate a bit with you and why you're thinking of adding an ADU. But I would say most common is the idea of a multi-generational household. A lot of people are thinking about how to take care of their loved ones, aging parents most often, but siblings as well, sometimes special needs, family members, etc. But it's just a great way to keep those you love close and safe. You know, and I think particularly when you think about grandparents, there's really that, you know, special magic that comes, you know, having them close by the grandkids. I can tell you my own experience with owning an ADU. My mom was one of our tenants for quite a while. And what was really interesting about that is when our kids were little, my mom drove them around and ran all those errands for us to get them from place to place. As my mom got older and our kids got older, they got their licenses and then they started driving my mom around. So she didn't want to drive anymore. So it kind of worked out throughout the entire cycle of that experience. And that was really a really wonderful experience for our entire family. Another use case we see commonly is aging in place. And I think this is really a fascinating retirement strategy for so many people. So the use case here would be that we have, a couple who've perhaps lived in their home for 30 years, they've raised their kids there, the home's bigger than what they need right now, but they've got a very low tax basis. They don't necessarily want to leave that. The mortgage is low, or maybe it's non-existent at this point. They don't want to leave that either. And so what we're seeing couples think about is renting the big house, building an ADU, which is smaller for them to live in. And a lot of times when people are retired, that ADU just becomes kind of a touch-in place. They envision traveling, visiting their kids and grandkids, all those types of things, while generating nice rental income from the primary house. So that's been a really interesting retirement game plan to see play out with some of our customers. Certainly housing for adult children is another one too. Jeremy talked about the high price of housing. Here, we're all painfully aware of this with our kids that are in their 20s or 30s. An ADU is a great and affordable place for them to live. They're not paying rent and making someone else's mortgage payment, and allows them to get into a nice living situation much more affordably than to buying something individually. And lastly, we've talked a bit about investors today, and investors broadly, whether they own a single family home where they live in and they want to generate some passive income from an ADU, or they're an investor in multifamily buildings or otherwise, we see a lot of investors, and what they see is positive cash flow day one, whether it's a single family home or multifamily. Cap rates, if you think in terms of cap rates and real estate returns, we frequently see 8 to 12%. Gross rent multipliers are significantly lower than Bay Area average, usually around 7 to 10, where Bay Area average is typically 15 to 20. And the reason that ADUs make so much sense as an investor is because you already own the land. When you already own the land and all you're paying for is the improvements or the ADU, you can see how that makes really a beautiful cash flow situation. And you're taking something, the land, from which you're currently earning nothing, and you're actually converting it into an important asset that can actually earn you significant amounts of money every month. So these are typical use cases. There are many, many more, but those I would say are the most common that we see in our customer conversations. So once you know you want an ADU, it makes sense for you, you've got the need, you've got the land, you want to get going on this thing. What do you do next? It is a big, big project. And as we talked about at the outset, any construction, whether it's a simple remodel, an ADU, whatever the case may be, construction projects are complicated. They're involved. They can take a lot of time, parentheses, ours don't, and we'll talk more about that. But really, where do you go next? And if you think about all the hurdles that you need to clear, the design, the permitting, the building, et cetera, what does it take? And the answer really is, it takes a partner like Habitat. And that's really our core value proposition. We are a full service general contractor and project manager for your ADU project. We do everything from design at the beginning of the project, and that's not just design of the unit, which we do in partnership with you, but the site planning and otherwise to make sure that it makes sense on your property. But from those early stages all the way through to installation and turning the keys over to you at the end of the project, we're your partner through that entire process. Our number one goal is to make this easy for you. What we want is at the end of the project for you to look back and go, wow, that was pretty easy. And it was certainly easier than maybe you thought it might be. From beginning to end, our projects typically are about 7 to 9 months. We're a prefab builder. We obviously do work in your backyard as it relates to the foundation, making utility connections, but most of the work is being done off-site in a factory, which I can tell you, you will appreciate it, your neighbors will appreciate it, but importantly, that's one of the keys that allows our projects to go very quickly, about 7 to 9 months typically from outset to handing the keys over.
Rick, I'd like to say something here.
Please.
Talking about being completely turnkey and everything. I think, and we'll touch on this in a second as well, but one of the things I think that sets this company apart is the people that are here. We have over 50 people employed. We have over 100 projects. We have people who are very good at what they do. I talked about this earlier. I have a extensive background in construction development, permitting, law. Rick is an investor. He's been in sales a long time. He brings a unique perspective because he actually owns one of our products. And so he can speak from a lot of different perspectives. We have marketing professionals. We have permitting professionals. We have a comprehensive warranty department. Everything that we do is about making this easier for you. And one of the things that I think makes us stand out is that we try to be as complete, open, transparent about this process, which is pretty unique in construction. When we give you a bid, an estimate, and we come to your property and we give you an assessment, we try to make sure that all the items are touched on. We don't want to leave anything out. And, we keep you updated throughout the process. You sign on with a contract and we give you an estimate. We walk you through the process every 2 weeks. I saw a testimonial yesterday from one of our clients who talked about how they never felt that they didn't know what was going on. We have bi-weekly meetings with our project management team. We always have a lot of different eyes looking on the project. We have a production team. We have a deal with the factory, a director of product. It's pretty comprehensive, and it really is amazing. I think top to bottom, it's the best team I've ever been a part of.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's get into then a little bit more detail on the Habitat product itself. Talk a little bit about floor plans and pricing and process. And then of course, we're going to get into your questions here in about 10 minutes or so. In terms of our product, one of the things that we really want to leave you with today is that we are prefab, and all of us, I think, kind of think about prefab as being a fairly restrictive form of building. That's not necessarily the case. If you look at these different images, you can really start to see what you're able to do with these ADUs to make it your own, whether it's roof style, window choices or placement, color, the use of porches or decks or not, and on and on. There really is a lot of opportunity to make this your own and to really make it work for the aesthetic and the design that works for you and for your family. In terms of floor plans, and I want to dig into these a bit now, we've got a total of 9, and they come, as you'll see, in all shapes and sizes. And the reason why is that every backyard's different. And we've really wanted to build ADUs that are going to fit in most backyards. There's few backyards that we're not able to get one of our ADUs comfortably and by meeting setbacks, into that location. And one thing I want to point out too, with regard to our models, you'll see a reference to these numbers. These all correspond roughly to square footage. So our model 450 is about 450 square feet, our 550 about 550 square feet, et cetera. But these are our 2 one-bedroom models, as you can see. Fairly straightforward design, super efficient floor plan. You've got a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, model 550s, just a little bit bigger than the 450 version. But the 450 at about 12 feet on the depth dimension, that more narrow dimension, is so ideal for so many backyards. It's really been a lifesaver for so many of our customers because of that narrow profile and how it fits in. Let's talk a bit about some 2 bedrooms. We've actually got 4 2-bedroom floor plans. Our smallest is a 500. This is also super popular. It's a fairly narrow footprint. And again, that allows it to fit comfortably into so many backyards. We've got a 750, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And then we've got some bigger 2 bedrooms. We've got our 800 and we've got a model 850 as well. And as
Rick,
Jeremy, yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you go back to the 749
Yeah.
and explain the 750 and the concept behind that?
Yeah.
It's come up in questions a couple times.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, the 750 is actually 749 square feet, and that's no coincidence or accident. In the world of ADUs, when you come in below 750 square feet, you are able to avoid impact fees that all the jurisdictions, whether it's a city or county in California, charge for an ADU permit package. So by keeping below 750, we're able to, at 749, we're able to shave about 10,000 off what the fees would be for that ADU. We're just a couple of feet larger and in excess of that 750 square foot magic number.
And Rick, does that apply in a situation with multifamily with 750s for multiples?
Yeah, it does apply there as well. Yep, definitely. And here's a couple of the bigger 2 bedrooms, the 800 and the 850. Again, you know, the different shapes are ideal. That really helps us accommodate so many different backyards and configuration requirements. The Model 800 is also kind of a magic number. Jeremy touched on that a bit earlier, but remember, 800 square feet or below, there's going to be minimal input from the local jurisdictions. When we go above 800 is when they're going to have a bit more to say about the ADU. And again, that varies very much jurisdiction by jurisdiction, as we explained. The state of California does allow up to 1,200 square feet, and we do go that big. I wanted to share quickly our 3-bedroom models. We've got 3 of them, 950, 1050, and 1,200 square feet. And I'd say the 950, and I'm going to get more into detail on the 950 in just a second, is one of our most popular 3 bedrooms. It's a super efficient floor plan. You get the full 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There's really no wasted space with hallways or otherwise. Really couldn't be more efficient. Also well priced. And here's the 1,200. And again, we have a lot of these out in the marketplace. There's been a lot of demand for 1,200s where there's jurisdictions and property parcel sizes that allow it. But for a lot of homeowners and property owners, if they can go to 1,200, they've certainly wanted to do that. Let me just take a closer look at the 950, and I want to share a bit about our pricing and how this works. So we'll look at the 950 specifically, but this concept is true for all of our ADUs as you look at this baseline price. So for the 950, the baseline cost, $249,000. It's about a 950 square foot 3-bed, 2-bath unit. And I want to talk about what's included in that. So the ADU itself, of course, is included. It's built in a factory, as I've described. When it arrives at your property, it arrives complete. It has all floor coverings, cabinets, all appliances, including a dishwasher, a washer and dryer. The bathroom fixtures are all complete and installed. The siding's installed, the windows are installed, the roofing. It's a complete unit. It's so complete, it even arrives with window blinds. So it's almost move-in ready when it arrives. So that unit itself, of course, is included in the baseline cost. The foundation is also included. We use a stem wall foundation system that's around the entire perimeter of the ADU, and that entire foundation system is included in the baseline cost. Permits and fees are also included at the $249 price point. We've got almost $30,000 in that budget for permits and fees from the jurisdiction. So really important that you make note of that. That is included in that baseline cost. As well, 50 feet of trenching for the utilities, the electrical, the sewer, and the water. 50 feet of trenching, and then the actual connection of those utilities, as well as the conduit or the pipe, that is also included in that baseline cost. And then lastly, we also have an allowance in that budget for a electrical panel upgrade. Because our ADUs come standard all electric, frequently the electrical panel at the main house needs to be upgraded. We've put some budget in there to help make that affordable. So really, if you think about the $249 price point, it's very all in, and we price it that way so that you can get an idea of what it's really going to cost to do a project like this in your backyard. And this chart really wraps that up in terms of the all-inclusive nature of it. So just the headline here is when you're looking at ADU builders and pricing things, just pay special attention to what is and is not included. We're complete and affordable, and everything is included in those baseline costs that you'll see for any of our floor plans. In terms of working with us, it's really simple. I mean, just get in touch. And today is a great first step. Thank you for doing that. If you want to go forward after today's meeting and have us really do a deeper dive into your property, we would create a project proposal for you. We do collect an assessment fee. It's $1,000 for us to build a project proposal for you. That's a fully refundable fee. If you decide not to go forward with us for any reason, we simply return it to you. So that money is never at risk. If you go forward with a project, of course, that goes towards the project budget. I do have a special deal too I want to talk to you about in just a second with regard to that assessment fee. But lastly, on this slide, if you like the proposal that we prepare for you and you want to go forward, we move immediately into the permitting phase of the project. Following permitting comes build. We do charge an additional fee when we go into the permitting process. It's $9,000. For the most part, there's not going to be a lot more out of pocket than those couple of fees that you've paid us until we actually start building your ADU. And if through this process, the project for some reason is infeasible, the city doesn't go along with it, whatever the case might be, we return all the fees that you've paid to us right back to you. So there's no risk if for any reason the project is deemed infeasible along the way. I touched on the project proposal. I wanted to expand on that just a bit more. The key steps that get us to the proposal are a kickoff call where we do a deep dive into your property. We order a site plan for you. We site the unit with you and make sure that the site plan, the unit plan, at least initially and as a first pass, matches and meets with your requirements. Then Jeremy or one of our construction managers will visit your site. That's essential, obviously, for us to do a detailed cost estimate for your project. You're going to be making design selections. There's a lot of great product choices to make with regard to your ADU, cabinet colors, flooring choices, exterior siding, and a number of others. You'll be making those selections. And all of these inputs give us the detail we need to create for you a very specific project proposal just for you, and it'll be line itemed out in extraordinary detail so you can see exactly what the project's going to cost and how long it's going to take. For one of our projects, a typical time frame looks something like this. As I mentioned, it's about 7 to 9 months from beginning to end. The assessment period is where we start. That's the period of time where we're researching your property, we're getting to know you and your property. You're getting to know us, by the way, and really that culminates in our sharing our proposal with you for your ADU project. If you love the proposal, we move immediately into the permitting phase. At that point, we're obviously engaging the jurisdiction around our plans for your ADU, answering any questions they might have, and ultimately getting the permits secured. Once those permits are secured, we go immediately into the build phase. That actually is super quick. Once we start doing work, we'll have that project wrapped up for you in 12 to 14 weeks. And quickly, I'll touch on this escrow comment here on the slide. The way your project gets paid for is we open an escrow account before we start the build phase. That escrow account is how the whole project gets paid for. So it's set up specifically for your protection. So the escrow agent is the one that receives, processes, and pays invoices when that escrow agent has approval from you and from us to pay said invoices. So you have a lot of control over your money throughout that entire process, and you're able to keep track of how your money for your project is being spent. So I did mention the assessment fee special offer. We do have a red hot deal for you this week. It's typically $1,000. We've cut it to $500 for this week for those attending the webinar. So that's available for all of you to take advantage of, and we hope you do. We'd love to build a proposal for you, absolutely. In terms of next steps, we're going to get into questions. I'm going to preempt that by answering one of the frequently asked questions with regards to our ADUs. We do have showrooms. We have one open in Oakland now. It's just off 580 near the zoo. And we'll be opening one in Santa Rosa in Q1. So that should be February or March timeframe. So if you'd like to see one of these, and many of our customers and prospects, of course, do, we'd love to host you and have you visit us. So we're going to open it up for questions now. That's really the best part. And as well, we're going to pop up a little survey in a second, and we'd love your feedback if you can share before you leave today on this webinar. And hopefully you found it informative. And as we get through this Q&A session, we'll be answering hopefully many, if not all, of your questions. So Jeremy, let's kick over to the questions. And there's the poll.
Hey, Rick, thank you. So we have a bunch here, and a bunch that I'd love to, you're really good at a lot of these. Can you talk about financing options for ADUs?
Yeah, financing options for ADUs is an evolving area. At this point, an ADU is not financeable independent of your main home. So if you think about it, when the ADU is done, it's going to be part of the property at large. And so because it's always, or at least for now, it's associated with the main home, typically homeowners are leveraging the equity from their home or from their multifamily property, if that's the case, to finance the ADU project. I would say cash out refis are the most common. Sometimes a cash out refinance in partnership or in tandem, I should say, with a home equity line of credit. That's kind of a frequent way that people will leverage both of those tools. A number of lenders also are now coming out with construction loans. And the benefit of the construction loan is the lender and the appraiser will look at the future value of the single family home plus the ADU, and you're going to be able to borrow up against that future value. And the reason that's important is in some cases, homeowners will need to capture a little bit of that future equity to pay for the ADU project today. And it's just nice to know that the lenders have built those products and have those available for you.
Rick, on that same note, can you please expand upon how property taxes are impacted?
Yeah. So the way to think about property taxes and ADUs is the ADU is really looked at like any other renovation project that you might do as it relates to your house. So if you do a remodel or if you do an ADU, from a tax perspective, it's looked at in the same fashion, which is this. When you submit your building permit, there's a budget associated with that building permit. The tax authorities, of course, get a copy of that, and they're going to see what the budget is for the project. And your taxes are going to go up, but your whole property isn't going to be reassessed by any means. Your taxes are going to go up just based on the cost or the budget, if you will, for that renovation project, whether it's an ADU or some other renovation. So let's say the budget were $200,000 for the ADU project. If you take 1.1 or 1.2% times that 200,000, you're going to come up with the annual tax impact. It's somewhere around 2,000, 2,400 a year, or something like that, for that example.
Thank you. This is another one that we have a bunch of, you and I do. Let's talk about how slope and septic requirements figure in, and are they automatically, do they X out a project, meaning we can't do it? Explain how that works.
Yeah, well, I would say, hey, Jeremy, I feel like that's in your sweet spot. But we do, this is the Bay Area, this is California. We see a lot of sloping parcels, of course. And as well, we've done a lot of work in rural or semi-rural parcels with septic tanks. So, and I'd say, Jeremy, you've probably worked on as many septic tank projects as any of our construction pros.
Yeah, you and I have 7 of them
Yes.
in just the South Bay and Peninsula alone. Yeah, so we have some preferred partners who do handle civil engineering, geotechnical, any type of soil, structural engineering that's required. A lot of the jurisdictions will not allow an ADU. They typically max out slope at about 30%. And typically when you're getting into that steep type slope situation, you're going to be triggering structural engineering requirements, additional requirements, but they don't automatically exclude building, again, below 30%. So if you have a steep backyard, it's 15%. Yeah, we could do it. We just need to look at it. And it really just depends on the situation. Every situation is unique. And that's why I love going out to properties and figuring out how to help people get them in the backyard. There's always a way, and sometimes it's with a crane, and sometimes it's our standard installation. We had another question, Rick, that came up earlier. Is crane our only installation? And I explained that no, that's actually not our standard.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of ways to get it there, but typically it's a site-by-site, case-by-case basis, and we make that determination when we do the visit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we looked at the floor plans earlier, I talked a bit about, we have so many different shapes and sizes, and that also works very much to our favor sometimes when access is a challenge. So we have ADUs that are uniquely narrow, and that allows us to get sometimes down more narrow driveways to get an ADU into the backyard without using a crane. I had a question here about that I want to take on. This was about roll-in showers and whatnot. And the answer to roll-in showers is yes, absolutely. We have lots and lots of accessibility options, and that's a very common request. Roll-in showers, wider doors for wheelchair or walker pass-throughs, grab bars in showers and otherwise. All of that is possible, and we have from the simple to the complex accessibility options for you to consider. And when you meet with our designer and you work through the design on your ADU, that's an important part of that conversation to make sure that we give you those safety and accessibility features that you're looking for.
Rick, real quick, and this is a pretty easy one to answer, but SoCal showrooms.
Yeah, we're going to have a showroom in Burbank, very close to the airport, and that's going to be available in February. And that will be our Model 550, and that is our slender. It's going to be our model. Yeah, it's Model 500 or 550. It's one of the. I can't remember which one it is. I actually think it's the 500, which is a 2-bedroom model. It's a slender 2-bedroom at about 500 square feet. Yeah, February.
Rick, sorry if this was answered, but will tax records be updated to include the square footage and room count of the ADU?
Gosh, that I honestly do not know the answer.
An interesting question. It's a
question.
good one.
Okay, we'll find out. Every day I get a
will.
question I've never had before. I do not know the answer to that.
That's interesting you say that. Every client, every situation, everything, I love doing this because our clients are our strength, our people internally are our strength, but we learn so much from you. And when you ask questions, and I've got 20 years in, but like Rick's got 20 years experience doing this. Like every day we learn something new, and don't be afraid to ask a question. Don't be afraid that it's silly or off the wall, because there's never a bad question, and we will help you figure it out. One thing I love about this company is if I don't know the answer or Rick doesn't know the answer, we can put it out on our internal channels and network and have an answer usually within 24 hours. It's pretty amazing. There's constant communication among team members here.
Right. You can always ask the audience. Hey, this is a good one for you, Jeremy. How have material and labor shortages impacted prices and timelines for ADU construction?
It's a great question. I would say timelines, unfortunately, due to COVID, let's talk about that first. It has slowed down some of the jurisdictions a little bit just because everybody's working remote. But that has actually gotten better in recent weeks. And I think as we're getting more used to the new normal, unfortunately, and working through. So we're finding that permitting departments are adapting. In terms of the factory, they have to take COVID precautions, et cetera. Lumber has skyrocketed in cost. But one good thing about building a prefab unit is that when you sign a contract with us, you lock in that price. And Rick, maybe you want to talk about how that works with the project services agreement and the price of the unit, because that's not going to change. I think you talk about that every proposal we do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so if you think back to the time frame or the timeline that I showed just a moment ago, we have that permitting phase in the middle between proposal and actually build. And that's about a 3 to 4 month period, depending upon how quickly the jurisdiction approves the permits. And during that period, 4 months of time might go by, and we do have a price guarantee for all of our customers. And the guarantee is this, that when we actually go to build your unit, the price that we quote you at that moment we're going to start building is going to be exactly the same as the price we showed you at the proposal phase. It's not going up. And one of the reasons we can do that is because prefab building is very predictable. And unlike stick building, which is less so, that's one of the big benefits to prefab. It's predictable. There's not unexpected costs. There's not wild swings in commodities pricing that's somehow going to affect what we do every day. And that's a huge benefit for you. So you can have confidence in that.
Rick,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know we're running a little short on time, but
Yeah.
I could do this all day long. This is great. Um, we've had a bunch of questions. Where are the units manufactured and who is manufacturing them? And it's a two-part question. So who actually does the fabrication of the unit?
Yeah, so our units are built. We have a partner who does all of our construction for us. The plant is in Southern California. It's in a, ironically enough, the town is called Corona. It's an industrial city just east of Los Angeles. And so they're our exclusive builder right now, and they build all of our ADUs for all of our customers. So
I do
fairly local.
I do think it's important to note that all our units are put on permanent foundations. We are a general contractor. We are also a project manager. We handle the whole thing for you. We have priority relationships with local subcontractors and plumbers, electricians, HVAC, foundation contractors, et cetera. But we all have a lot of experience with the background of building, and we actually take on all the site work ourselves. And then when the unit arrives, and we have some great videos on the website showing how this is done.
Yeah.
Oh, Rick, you want to talk about warranty?
Yeah, warranty is a really great question. And so we do offer a with the manufacturer. So there's two companies that stand behind the warranty, the manufacturer and ourselves, Habitat. We have a 7-year warranty on the unit, which is it's super comprehensive. It includes almost everything. Amazingly, even appliances are covered by the warranty for that entire 7-year period. But certainly the HVAC system, plumbing, electrical, the framing and the structural itself. A number of the components have warranty periods that are far longer than the 7-year. Our siding, which is it's a concrete composite type siding. The brand's called Allura that we use, similar to Hardy Board. That is a 50-year warranty from the manufacturer of the siding. Our roof shingles have a 30-year warranty. So definitely a well-warranted product for certain. And before we leave you with the keys, we do walk you through the complete owner's manual and also all the warranty documentation so that you know how to call in a warranty item to us if that does need to be done. Lastly, on warranties, they're also extendable if you wanted to extend beyond the 7 years, and they're also transferable. So if you sell the property, that ADU warranty is transferable to the next owner.
We've had a lot of questions come up on, the other thing I was going to talk about is, California right to repair for site work in terms of foundation, utilities, et cetera. We're bound as a general contractor to uphold those. So 10 years on foundation, 4 years on site and utility work. It's pretty comprehensive. You won't have to worry. We have checklists where we come in after 30 days, 6 months, and 1 year. We want happy clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a couple more. There's a question about roof solar, and our roofs do come solar ready. So what that means is that structurally, the roof system is designed to carry the weight of panels, and also there's junction box and conduit that connects to the sub panel, the electrical sub panel on the ADU. So in terms of an installation of solar, couldn't be easier, and that's something that we can help with in terms of finding a solar contractor, or you can do that on your own. But they are solar ready. A lot of jurisdictions, San Jose in particular is one, do require solar ready for their ADUs.
Rick, I've had a bunch of people ask, how can they contact us to see the showroom?
Yeah, so it would literally be, so following this, webinar, you will be contacted by us. Also, if you want to just reach out to us directly, email into the company, because we do want to know you. We'd love to, do an assessment of your property. Assessments, there's no cost to an assessment at all. But during that conversation, we can talk a bit more about the showroom in Oakland and get you signed up to visit it this month or shortly thereafter.
And Rick, can you touch base again on cap rates and like multi-unit investor and like what that means and just this great opportunity for multi-unit investors?
Yeah, we'll finish on this one. I see we're at 1 o'clock, so we'll wrap up right after this answer. But yeah, in the world of real estate investing, cap rate simply measures the rate of return. And so it is it's the net operating income, divided by the purchase price of the asset, basically. And um, the return that we've seen on ADU projects have been anywhere from 8 to 12%, and which is amazing. Cap rates, and so the cap rate would be 8 to 12%. In the Bay Area, 4 to 5% for multifamily is fairly typical. Sub 4 is becoming increasingly common. So if you can do a cap rate of 8 to 12%, and you're either twice or three times as good as Bay Area average, it definitely makes a lot of sense. If you're a single family homeowner, it almost always makes sense. If you've got a multifamily property and you've got room for ADUs, you've got enough land, I can tell you it always makes sense in the Bay Area. Rents are high enough here that every deal I've seen not only makes sense, but it's a home run.
I would like one more question, Rick. I know
One
we're
more.
up on
Oh,
one time.
okay.
We've had a lot of questions come up across from people on how custom can they make their unit. So what design choices do they have inside, or what design choices do they have outside?
Yeah. Yeah, we've developed a system around customization that is specific and focused, but allows you to do quite a bit. And what I mean by that is, now that we've got input from literally thousands of different homeowners and customers as it relates to their projects, we've come to learn what the most common special requests are. So we've actually productized and made those available as standard options. So things like replacing windows with sliding glass doors, easy, no problem at all to do that. Making windows bigger, maybe moving window locations. A lot of these things are fairly simple to customize. And that's something that we get into detail on during our design sessions and when you meet with your habitat designer. As I
We
said.
also have clients who want to match their existing home on the exterior.
Yeah.
So we have clients who are doing custom shingle siding. They're doing custom stucco. They are doing a lot of things on the outside to integrate it as part of not as part of the main home, but to make it feel like it's one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take one more here, and I think we better wrap, because thank you so much, everyone, for staying and for asking all these great questions. There's a question about French doors, and we have a lot of window and door options. And so French doors, either single pane or a double swing, certainly available. Sliding glass doors as well. In fact, our sliders go to 8 by 8 feet. See, our interior ceiling heights are 9 feet, so you've got a lot of ceiling height, and you can actually go to 8 by 8 on our largest slider that we offer. So if you've got concepts that you want to bring a lot of the outdoors into the unit, we can certainly do that with lots of window and door options. All right. I think we better wrap it up, Jeremy. Gosh, thanks everyone for joining us today. This was really fun for us. We love doing this. We love hearing from you. And if you'd like to have us specifically assess your property, build a proposal for you, we'd love to do that. Remember, we have this assessment fee deal right now. It's just $500. Regardless, that money's never at risk. If you decide not to work with us, we just return it to you. So we'd love to do a project with you. We'd love to build a proposal, and do get in touch.